Everybody, we are Rough Draft Research. You are the audience, and together we are on a quest for Dynasty domination. How are you doing over there, Daniel?
Oh man, I'm doing great. Dynasty domination is locked in. I won all of my sleeper leagues last week, 5 for 5.
Nice.
So
That's
that
awesome.
is has not happened this year. So I'm feeling good. How are you doing?
That's a good day. I'm not doing so well fantasy wise. A couple leagues, I'm not doing hot at all. And then a couple I'm all right. But yeah, it's been a weird year. I'm pivoting. I've done a lot of trading this year, so it's been a fun, but in a different kind of way.
Yeah, I've getting a little aggressive with my fab budget after all these years of being conservative. So we're in a league together where it's like a $300 fab budget,
hmm
and I just did a $123 bid to get to zero, baby.
There you
So,
go.
but I've not lost out any fab bids this year. So
Hey man, that's
winner.
the way to do it. You
All
can't you
right.
can't use it next year, you know. It's got
That's
to
right.
go. So
You lose 100% of the fab you don't spend, man.
all right. So if you were with us last week, you saw me go over kind of a 2022 rookie comparison to the 2023 guys. Now we're going to kind of flip that a little bit. We're going to do the 2022 rookie guys compared to their own sophomore season, just to see like if they got better, if they got worse, and why sometimes. I'm not going to spend a huge deep dive on it, but there is some interesting stuff here. So yeah, let's go ahead and just crack into it. So we got the 1-1 from 2022. That was Brees Hall. He was the RB 18 through 9 weeks, and all these stats are going to be through 9 weeks, just so we can compare evenly, just getting that out of the way. Right now, he's the RB 22, so he's right around there. He's averaging 2 less points. Brees has kind of that Barkley syndrome where he goes off sometimes, but then he drops a few duds here's and there. But that said, he's shown that he's like a playmaker of the highest order. Um, his breakaway percentage right now is 53%. That's second in the league behind Achan. And just in front of our boy Jaleel McLaughlin, because of course he's going to be in the top five of every RB category.
Jaleel.
Last year he ended that stat at fourth in the league at 43%. So like he's just getting breaking off massive chunks every game, it seems like. And there's not really much to complain about here. He's getting the ball just as much, even in fact, a little bit more than he was last year. Producing pretty much just as much, has 30 more yards on the ground, a little bit less receiving. We could use some more touchdowns. He had 5 at this point last year. He only has 3 right now. But he looks like a solid RB1, going to be top 10 for a while unless he gets hurt again. So
Uh,
moving on to number 2, we got another running back. We got Kenneth Walker. He was the 2022 RB17. And right now he is the RB10. So pretty close there. He's really close in total points. 115.8 last year and 115.3 right now. So pretty much a very similar level of production. He's getting the ball more right now, but he's actually been less effective as a runner. 5.1 yards per carry last season, 4.2 this season. His receiving work, though, has improved because he only has one more reception than last season. Last season, he had 14. Now he has 15. But compared to 48 yards last year, he has 111 this year. Not like crazy, tremendous receiving work, but it was cool to see that because that was like one of the questions that we had on him coming out of the draft. It's worth noting that Zach Charbonnet has outsnapped him 2 weeks in a row now. So I'll be super intrigued to see how Walker finishes the year. But as of now, you can't really complain about him. So moving on to the 1-3, we got our first wide receiver. That's Drake London. And kind of similarly to the other two guys, he's very close to where he was last year. Last year at this point, he was the wide receiver 42. Right now, he's wide receiver 38. Not really where we want him to be for a guy as talented as he is. But these stat lines are eerily similar. Yards is the biggest difference here, and it's at 70. He has 70 more yards than he did at this point last season, but he has 2 touchdowns. He has 37 catches, compared to 33 catches and 2 touchdowns last year at the same point of the season. He even had just one more target, 57 this year, 56 last year. So very, very similar. Please don't panic about Drake London, dude. Like, he has 33 more targets than the next wide receiver on this roster, 31 more than the next wide receiver on this roster at this point last year. He's out targeting Kyle Pitts through 9 weeks, both last year and this year. He's PFF like one of the highest graded receivers, even though he's not getting a ton of work. So I think once Atlanta figures their shit out and gets a quarterback in there and actually uses the guys that they want to use, Drake London is going to be fine. Like, it's not through lack of his own. It's just been a slower start than what we want to see out of a guy taken in the top 10 of the NFL draft. So.
Dude, from what I've seen from this team, I know that they're a quarterback away from all these guys being unlocked, but just like the weird coaching, I'm like, is it just the quarterback away, or is there a little more?
I think we got to get rid of Arthur Smith potentially too. I don't like to
Get
be
the
that callous
stash out
about
of
it.
here.
Yeah, well, the stash already left, and then he gave a 6-minute rant today about like why he wasn't using Bijan, and like it didn't make sense. So it
Oof.
whatever. But I mean, hopefully we turn it around and we just start using these guys. Either way, something's gonna give eventually. They're too talented and they've been too good. It's not that they haven't been good, they're just not getting the fantasy production that we want. Anyway, moving on to the 1-4. This guy has been disappointing. Treylon Burks, 2022, he was the wide receiver 115. He's the wide receiver 115 right now as well in 2023. He's been rough to analyze, under 20 targets through 9 weeks in back-to-back seasons. That's rough. He has 18 right now, 16 last year. Puka had over 20 targets in a game this season. So like,
Yikes.
that's just kind of like what we're looking at. I mean, to be fair, Burks has dealt with injuries. He's only played 5 games this season. He only played 4 games through 9 weeks last season. But I guess that's kind of the problem too, is that he can't stay healthy enough to even gain a little traction to get going. I don't want to label people bust, but we have like a pretty high potential here. We're going to see Tennessee change a little bit. They named Levis the starter. Maybe they'll start balling out more, but even with Levis, Burks hasn't done much. I mean, I don't know. This one's a weird one. Bad vibes, kind of. Hopefully he can turn it around though, because he was explosive at Arkansas, but we haven't seen much of that in the NFL. Moving on to the 1-5, and we've got Garrett Wilson, another guy who's kind of hanging right where he was last year. Last year at this time, he was the wide receiver 24. Right now, he's the wide receiver 22. He's averaging more points per game by a little bit, and he's dominating in targets. Once again, he has 81 targets through 9 weeks. He had 69 targets through 9 weeks last season. But it's the receptions of it all, because he's got 81 targets through 9 weeks, which is 9 a game, but it's the same problem as last year. It's ineffective targets. He has the exact same reception percentage as he did last year at 59.7 through 9 weeks. And he only has 2 drops. So I'm no math scientist, but it seems like there's an issue here at getting him the ball accurately. And so it's just, I mean, again, we got to wait. I mean, I was banging the table saying that Aaron Rodgers was going to turn Garrett Wilson into a true top 10 wide receiver. We apparently are going to have to wait until next year for that to happen. But I do think we're just a quarterback away for Garrett Wilson, because he's getting the workload. It's just not a consistently good enough workload for him to do more with it. I mean, he's still crushing it on pace for 1,000 yards. Unfortunately, he's only on pace for 4 touchdowns, so that's not great. But like he's gonna be on pace for near 100 catches. Like, these are things that we want to see out of him. We just need to get better opportunity for Garrett Wilson. And that's kind of an awesome segue into my next guy, the 1-6 in 2022, who was Chris Olave. And you could say the exact same thing. He's still crushing it right now. Crushing it might be strong, but he's the wide receiver 18 right now. He was the wide receiver 15 through 9 weeks last year. But he actually has more points right now by 2 than he had last year. So just a little bit more heating up. He's dominating in the target department in both seasons. But Daniel, they put a lid on our boy because his yards per reception are down from 14 and a half in 2022 to 11.3 this year. His ADOT is down from 14.9 to 13.6. His yards per route run, this is egregious. He is down from 2.42 to 1.69. That's a
Why?
massive jump off for a guy who is the epitome of a deep threat. But you've got the dump off king, Derek Carr,
Derek
and
Carr, dude.
he has not developed a strong connection with Olave yet. And I think it's costing us a supreme Olave sophomore season. Like, I don't like what's going on. He's still been producing, he's a top 20 receiver. So, like, I don't know, looking a gift horse in the mouth, I guess, a little bit here, but like, I expect him to be a top 10. So we just need to get him a little bit better opportunities as well, kind of unlock him for what he's meant to be used for.
Yeah, but you really do have to get those deep targets like he was getting last year to be useful, especially the way this team's ran, with
Mm-hmm.
Taysom, the Vulture Hill, and then you got Alvin Kamara, apparently unstoppable in every way. So he's the perfect complement to those guys as if he's used effectively in the deep ball game. So it's getting a little wacky. I'll give you that. Derek Carr, nobody's hero. That's a for sure.
No, not at all. Not at all. He's spoiling a lot of hype going into this season for Olave. Moving on to the 1-7 here, we got Sky Moore, 2022. Last year he was the wide receiver 137. Right now he's the wide receiver 79. It's good to see Sky Moore's workload increase from year one to year two. It's disheartening though that a 50% increase in targets only ended up being 30 targets through 9 weeks. But that being said, Moore is the second wide receiver on the Chiefs in terms of targets. Tony's right behind him, so he's kind of just mixed up in that same area as him. The problem is that Moore is on the field more than Rice and Tony, and he's right around the same as Tony and way fewer behind Rice. So it doesn't really, Sky Moore, this is another one. This was a me and you guy, and this one's kind of having pretty bad vibes now. It seems like he might just be kind of a role player for Kansas City instead of a dominant slot guy like we thought he might be. Because the jump is there. He's on the field more than he was. He's getting more targets. It's just not enough to make him fantasy relevant, really. So it's
Tear
tough.
my heart out, Sky Moore.
It's
Come
tough. I
on.
think Rashee Rice, after we did Miko, after we did Sky Moore, after we people got excited about MVS, I think Rashee Rice might finally be the wide receiver that pops for Kansas City in terms of dynasty, but we'll see. Moving on to the 1-8. This one's super weird. We got Jameson Williams. Didn't play through 9 weeks in 2022 and 2023. I mean, I guess he's played. He's the wide receiver 122. Points per game, 4.8, 6 catches, 71 yards, and a touchdown. He has 7 career receptions and he has 7 career drops. So, not really looking good. It's also not looking good that right before the trade deadline, like they got Jameson Williams back early, the Detroit Lions did, and then right before the trade deadline, they still made a move and got Donovan Peoples-Jones. He's already being outsnapped by obviously Amon-Ra and Josh Reynolds. Now we got to see how he works in with Donovan Peoples-Jones. But for a guy that only has 15 targets, he has 5 drops this season on 6 catches. So it's just not, he's not building confidence with Jared Goff. He's not building confidence with the offense. And I don't know. I think he's like a deep threat guy, like kind of a boomer bust guy at best right now. Not somebody that you can rely on to play effectively. So not a lot there. Moving on to the 1-9. This is one of the more interesting ones. We've got Dameon Pierce. Last year at this point, he was the RB14. Right now he's the RB44. And part of it is way fewer carries for him. He has 39 fewer carries than he did at this point last season. He has 3 fewer touchdowns than he did at this point last season, but he's also just been far less efficient with the ball. So 4.5 yards per carry last season, is all the way down to 3 yards per carry this season. Houston just can't run the ball. And when CJ Stroud's dropping 500 yards passing and 5 touchdowns, they don't really need to. So, I mean, Dameon Pierce was out last week. Singletary got the start. They still couldn't run the ball. So I don't necessarily know it's all on Pierce. Seems like a Texans problem, but it's still not a good look. And he might end up falling into that kind of wash of later round running backs that pops year one and year two and then just vanishes. Hopefully not. But I mean, he's 678 yards last season, 327 yards this season, 3 touchdowns on the ground last season, 1 this season. It's just nothing really except the receiving has been similar, and the receiving hasn't been enough to make him that usable this year for a guy that was going in the 4th, 5th round of redrafts.
Yeah, I got him in a startup. Regret it.
Yeah, it's tough. Moving on to the 110. This is another weird one. George Pickens. It shouldn't be weird. You're gonna understand why I think it's weird in a second. In 2022, he was the wide receiver 55. All right. 2023, he's the wide receiver 29. So that's a pretty big increase in production. And he only has 4 extra catches. He had 26 last year. He has 30 this year. He has 183 yards and 2 more touchdowns on 4 catches through 9 weeks this season. He's leading the team on 4 more catches, not 4 catches total, but he had 26 at this point last season, 30 at this point. But he's leading the team in targets. So Pickens really has seen kind of the uptick in usage we want. I don't think that he'd agree with me because him throwing a fit over winning a football game and being weird and grumpy that he couldn't stay in bounds when he had 10 yards to do it. But he has that jump. It's just that this offense is kind of slow and kind of boring, and we need an uptick in overall production of the offense to really see Pickens get a superstar jump. But it's not like the usage hasn't been there. He jumped up from 41 targets to 58 this season. So they're using him almost twice as much. That it's not that's a stretch, but they're using him. It just hasn't like translated into that many fantasy points yet, but we just need the whole offense to do it. And then I think Pickens will be fine as long as he doesn't do something boneheaded and get kicked off the field.
Oh, let's hope that doesn't happen, man. This guy is clearly holding down hope for this entire wide receiver class,
It's been tough. It's been tough so far. I don't know. We've got some names in there. Just we gotta go. We needed more production out of them. I think they'll be fine though. The top half of this class is sick. Anyway, moving on to the 111, we got James Cook, and this is this is probably the largest jump in terms of usage out of any of these 12 guys from year 1 to year 2. 80 more carries, 15 more receptions, 474 more all-purpose yards. So Cook has been extremely productive member of the Bills offense. But unfortunately for him, and unfortunately for fantasy owners, he still only has 1 more touchdown than he had through this point last season, which is only 2. He only had 1 last season. So he's had this huge, massive jump in production and usage, which does have him sitting as the RB19 compared to the RB62 like he was last year. So that's awesome that we've seen this bump, but you kind of hit it all season that the Bills, like, he's not going to score that much there. Like, that's just not an offense. There's too many pieces there for him to really get the work that they need. And then they brought in Latavius Murray, who's been doing work, and then they just signed Leonard Fournette, right? That's not right. Who signed Leonard Fournette?
I think it was them, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. Okay, I got to trust my instinct more.
I'm with you.
But anyway, so he has seen the uptick in usage, and he's banging out 4.7 yards per carry right now. It's just that there's too many people on that offense that take the touchdowns away from him. But he has looked good, and it's a guy that like I wasn't necessarily in on going into this season. So it's cool to see him produce. He just needs to score more touchdowns.
Yeah, it's good to see him produce. I'll give you that. I don't know. I wasn't in on him either, so it's glad to see it work out for our old friend AJ,
Yeah, AJ is
who is
excited.
a Cook family friend and a heavy drafter of James
He
himself.
did. He did go after James hard. All right. And so rounding it out with the 112, we've got Christian Watson. Last year at this point, he was the wide receiver 107. And this year he's the wide receiver 88.
Yikes.
Um, both both of his seasons have started off rather frustratingly. Week 10 was when he dropped the hammer on the Cowboys last year, and that's kind of the first time we saw the potential of like what they were going for with Watson. But through 9 weeks, we hadn't seen that last year. He had 8 catches for 88 yards, hadn't even topped 100 yet. This season, he's topped 100, but he's only at 213 on 12 catches, and he has a touchdown. Even in the return, we haven't really seen him light the scoreboard up. It's this offense, it doesn't work all the time. They did heat up against the Rams, but I don't think you're going to get to play Brett Ripien and the Rams all the time. And so I don't have a lot of faith here right now, but it's tough to see because Watson was a guy that I was pretty high on as a Packers fan, but also just in general, I thought he looked awesome at the end of last year, and I thought they were going to keep that rolling, and it really just hasn't gotten going yet.
No, yeah, he definitely had a strong resurgence to the end of the year, and I just want him to be that person.
Yeah, it was fun. It was fun. But there you have it. So a lot of guys are kind of right where they were last year. But that doesn't always it wasn't always good. But like the only guy that was really significantly different there was James Cook there at the end, and he was a big jump and increase. Everybody else was fairly close to where they were last year going into week 9.
That's crazy, man.
Weird, huh?
Yeah, you brought up a lot of thoughts and principles that I'm very curious about, and specifically wide receivers. That's kind of my thing. That's what I'm very much into. And I mean, even just in your closing, you said, most of these guys are right where they were last year. Pickens is kind of the only uptick in usage, even
Hmm.
in comparison. So it makes me wonder, if you look at guys of their first year and their second year, these wide receivers, I mean, it's kind of telling how they ended up in their first year. Set the tone a little bit, at least for last year's class. So I kind of wanted to get into a little bit of historical rookie year performance for wide receivers, if you're
Okay.
cool with that.
I would love that.
Okay. Well, you know what I did as from 2013 through this current draft class, I'm looking at rookies and I'm looking at who is putting up fantasy relevant performances. And I picked an arbitrary number that made me happy. It was like 114 fantasy points, which historically will put these guys in a position to be, like wide receiver 70 ish or better. So that means that they're potentially startable, definitely relevant, and make you pretty happy. So just looking through at last year, we ended up with 4 guys on this list. And it was Chris Olave, Garrett
Mm.
Wilson, George Pickens, and Christian Watson. He ironically he made it on the list. So in the past 10 years, there are 43 guys. So for 4 of them to be from last year's class, that's not bad. It's not too shabby at all. Um, but what I did is, since we're dealing with all the way back to 2013, as the kids say, I normalized all 17 game seasons to a score that would be 16 games.
Mm. Okay.
And in doing that, it allowed me to take this year's class and project their scores out to
Ooh.
a 16 game season. So I said there's 43 of these guys. Um, this is going to blow your mind, but 9 of them are current year rookies.
Huh.
Yeah, I know.
Wow.
It's pretty crazy. So this is all spurred by just kind of my instinct. I'm wondering, like, I thought we'd seen a bump in fast success from rookies. in a stretch of a few years, a couple of years back, Jamar Chase and Jalen Waddle and everything. And I felt like we were getting a bit of a regression. So I wanted to get into these numbers and kind of trace the history of the number of rookies to be successful their rookie year, right? So in the top 60, I'm going to start at 2013 and work our way all the way through, and you can see kind of the trend that's been set. But yeah, in 2013, there were only two guys that were that successful. It was Cordero Patterson and Keenan Allen. Then you go to five guys in 2014. That was a solid year. Odell was in there, Mike Evans, a couple other guys. But then it's three in 15 and 16, dips down to only two in 2017, one in 2018. Calvin Ridley was the Lone Ranger there. But then we jump up to five in 2019. And like this is, these are some serious guys that we all know about. AJ Brown, Terry McLaurin, Debo Samuel, DK Metcalf, and ironically, Darius Slayton made it in by the skin of his teeth on this. And then it's five again in 2020, four in 2021. We just discussed the four in 2022, but yes, nine of them in this year's class. And just to give you a bit of a little mind warp here, since I did project out for 16 game seasons. If you look at these 43 guys over the past 10 years, the top two are from this class, given this projection. And that's number one, Puka Nacua. You can't be too surprised by that.
Yeah.
But I was shocked. Jordan Addison puts him as number two ahead of Jamar Chase. So then it would be Jamar Chase, Odell Beckham, and the number five is Tank Dell currently. Yeah. And Josh Downs actually makes the top 10 of this list. So
nice.
Yeah, other rookies in it this year, Zay Flowers, Rashee Rice, Jaden Reed actually would be 14th on this list. Yeah, pretty pumped there. Michael Wilson, and then Jackson Smith and Jigba. And so it's going pretty well for these guys. I was like, I wasn't really expecting to find this out. I kind of felt like these guys were getting a slow start. You think of your Jackson Smith and Jigbas and Rashee Rice, even Zay Flowers felt like they could have been doing better, but I was wrong. My expectations were too high. They're actually crushing it. But going through all this, it kind of made me wonder, like, not a ton of these guys are first round players, right? So I wanted to kind of look back over see what it looked like, how the first round guys had been doing, how much success is coming from non-first round players, and just how many first round players are successful. And so when you run those numbers, it gets pretty interesting. There's 70 guys to either be top 60 wide receivers their rookie year or first round picks.
Okay.
So some guys are both, some guys are one or the other. So that's the pool. And obviously, if you have 43 guys on the list I was just talking about, those are either going to be non-first rounders that are top 60 or first rounders that are top 60. We'll start with that. We'll break that up. And there's only 17 guys that were first round picks that were in the top 60 their first year out of 70. So that's pretty extreme. 27 of them were not first round picks that made it on. Yeah. So I don't know, kind of sleeper guys. A ton of them were second round picks, right? Let's not get too weird about it. But then there's 26 guys that did not make the top 60 that were first round draft picks their rookie year. So being that we've already kind of identified a bit of a stagnant production from a rookie year to a second year with last year's class, I just want to kind of look at this list of guys and see how many of those 26 became like more fantasy relevant as their careers went on. And I'm
Hmm.
not going to name all 26 guys, but there are some names that should be mentioned because they were able to overcome a slow start.
Hmm.
Um, so, yeah, you've got yourself a whole bunch of names not doing too hot, but I'd say Marquise Brown. I'd give Hollywood. He's definitely a relevant guy. He's not a superstar. Mike Williams is also on this list.
Hmm.
But then, yeah, it's Brandon Cooks
It's great.
and DeAndre Hopkins. Like, that's pretty much it. There's a ton of guys. You got your Kevin Whites and your Tavon Austins, Philip
Philip
Dorsett's,
Dorsett,
and
Brashad
yeah, your
Perriman,
Treadwells
Corey
and
Coleman,
Jalen
Jalen
Rager.
Rager. Yeah.
Jerry Judy's on this
Jerry
list.
Judy. I mean, that's fair at
I
this
mean,
point.
Rashad Bateman's on this list. Like,
Rashad Bateman makes sense. Yeah.
it's crazy, dude. I
So
mean,
that,
it goes on
yeah.
forever.
Yeah. And that just makes you wonder about the guys that we've been talking about this episode that over the last two seasons that have been taken. Like, are the guys that happen to be on this going to end up more in the Hopkins camp or the Cooks camp, or are they going to end up in the Corey Coleman camp?
Yeah.
And that's worrisome. Do you want to? I don't want to take away your announcement. Do you want to tell the four guys that are on it?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. The four guys that are on it.
from the last two
Was
seasons, 2022 and 2023, for the bus.
Oh yeah, yeah. The four guys from the last two seasons that are on it.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah. I'm with you. Sorry, you're watching what I'm doing. It is so, Jameson Williams, Drake London, Traylon Burks, and Quentin Johnston.
Yeah.
So like disappointment alley right there.
Yeah, really, really big time disappointment. So yeah, it's interesting to see like, oh man, are these four guys like they're in that danger zone already? Like, can one of them make it out of there? Um, I don't know. Given the numbers, it doesn't see it seems like maybe one of them will, but the other ones are probably gonna crash and burn. So
Yeah, you're thinking, Drake London might be our Hopkins
I'm
moment.
hoping so, as
Yeah,
much as I
really.
invested in him. But that would, I mean, that would be my guess because of those four guys, his is not through him playing poorly or not seeing the field, whereas the other three guys just aren't really out there at all. Um, yeah, I mean, Quentin Johnston comes into this week with no Josh Palmer, no Mike Williams, and gets like 3 fantasy points. Um, it's just
Ugh,
that's not good. Um,
no.
so yeah, I mean, if I have to pick one, it seems easy to say that Drake London would be the one that makes it out of there. But man, yeah, there's some intense names on here. Henry Ruggs, I mean, that we all know kind of how that was a different situation, I guess. Will Fuller, Laquan Treadwell, though, some really spicy names that crash and burn that people were in on.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, yeah, and there's the sad part is, you look at some of these draft classes, that 2018 class where there was just Calvin Ridley that worked out, and then DJ Moore. Oh yeah, DJ Moore's on this list.
Oh
He's
yeah, I
he's
guess
doing
DJ.
well.
Yeah, he's
So,
doing well. He's doing
and then
super
so
well.
DJ Moore, but that the rest of that class was like James Washington, Anthony
Mm,
Miller, like
mm.
just some really sad news. So I don't know, man. It's kind of wild. But I mean, you're talking about these guys from the last 2 years, and I know you brought up last week, I believe, like, is it like the big guys getting a slow start,
Hmm.
or is like speed starting to take over? And that stuck with me when you mentioned it. So I wanted to break that down
Oh
a
yeah,
little bit.
nice.
And so on these guys that are we're considering, rookie bust, or like obviously if you're not top 60 your rookie year, it's a little disappointing, especially when you have a first round draft
Price
capital.
tag. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but nine of these guys I would consider like big dudes. Like these are either over 6'3" or over 220, like
Mm.
big guys. So nine of them definitely had a slow start. A lot of them fizzled out. And didn't make it that far, but they had a better chance to rebound. I'd say it's 50-50. Yeah. But then if you look at speed, I'm looking at guys that are sub 4.4. And just looking at this, I've got four, six, nine of them. And it's hard to say, besides Brandon Cooks, none of the fast guys that started off slow bounced back at all,
Mm.
pretty much. Unless you count Will Fuller, it's kind of hard to. But John Ross, right? I fucking like Kadarius Toney's on this list
Mm.
somehow. So it almost seems like, yeah, if you're fast and you don't get off to a running start, shit.
Then that's it.
Um, yeah, then you're just cooked. Oh shit, man, the puns keep rolling. Uh, whereas the bigger guys like your Devonta Parker, he bounced back, and Mike Williams, for sure, came back in action. And then we're talking about Drake London, like he's just waiting for success. So the bigger guys definitely, I think, have an edge on recovering from a slow start.
Yeah.
But
Damn. Rashad Bateman ran a 4.39. I forgot about that. Woof.
wild, man. I mean, he's been really injured, and he's on he's with the Ravens. So
Yeah, it's tough. Well,
maybe,
damn, man. Yeah, that's super interesting.
yeah. So just to kind of follow this theme, it's just like a free form conversation of just collected information, right? So I wanted to talk earlier. You mentioned you were talking about Damian Pierce, and you talked about like late round guys that pop,
Hmm.
and does it, do they fizzle out or does it stick through? So I wanted to look through these 27 wait, 26 guys that were not first round picks that were in the
Hmm.
top 60. And again, like we're not going through every one of these guys, but like, some of the later round guys that had a lot of success, we all know, like your Cooper Cups, Darius Slayton, like surprisingly on this list makes me happy for some reason. Amon-Ra St. Brown, Puka Nakoa, Tyreek, I guess technically counts for sure on this list. And, they're mixed in with a ton of dudes that are, like T. Higgins and AJ Brown or whatever, like early
Hmm.
second round picks that were successful. Um, but I want to look at these guys and see if there's any kind of correlation with the size and the speed, like we are just talking about. Maybe their draft capital was impacted by not being the biggest guy or whatever, or
Hmm.
maybe their success was fueled by them being pretty quick. So yeah, of these 26, we have only five of them. Well, only four of them had under a 4.4, and that's Darius Slayton. DK Metcalf ran a 4.33. Jesus. Terry McLaurin was a 4.35, and then
That's
Christian
crazy.
Watson was a
Hey.
4.36. Yeah, so I mean, all those guys were second round picks, except Terry was a third round pick. So fast guys in the second round, maybe something to look out for. But I wanted to see, yeah, like big guys that made this list. And there's not as many as I would have thought. I'm going with six of them. Michael Wilson currently, T. Higgins, as mentioned, DK makes that list too. And then Michael Thomas and Jordan Matthews are on there.
AJ Brown.
AJ Brown, for sure. So yeah, it seems like being a large guy in the second round just gives you a good shot too. There's not as much to get out of this conversation, but one thing I did want to note that I've been building up to here is that seven of these guys were either 5'10" or smaller,
Mhm.
or under 190 pounds. So these are the guys that might have been getting slept on a little bit for being undersized, but then overcame that size disadvantage. So this all goes to kind of like looking at rookie classes where I'm like, you know what? If this guy's feisty and small, I might take a better shot on him. It's coming down to Josh Downs, Tank Dell, and Jaden Reed. Like those guys are really making a name for themselves in this
Oh yeah.
class, being that type of a wide receiver. And I mean, you've seen it. We've all seen it with Tyreek, but then you got the pair, ironically, of Darius Slayton and Sterling Shepard that had success their rookie years being undersized as far as the weight goes. And then obviously the legend himself, Tyler Lockett,
Yeah.
is always always going to be on that list. So Yeah, that's a little bit of that. And I mean, honestly, the 17 guys that were first rounders that made the list, like we all know who these people are. There's only a few of them that hit the list and then fell off. I'd say Cordero qualifies for that.
Yeah,
Kelvin Benjamin.
Kelvin Benjamin.
But I mean, the rest of these guys are kind of all household names
Yeah, I
that are
mean you
still pretty active. So
Mari Cooper, CeeDee Lamb, Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, Devonta Smith, Garrett Wilson. Those are the Chris Olave, Brandon Ayuk. Those are the names you're talking about. So yeah, Jalen Waddle. I don't know. It feels
yeah.
rude to leave people out, but
Oh yeah. But the scary thing is that is, only 17 to 70. Like
yeah,
that's frightening. Uh, so I mean, I don't know. So there's a better chance for them to be first rounders that don't pop off, and then there's equal chance for a non-first rounder to be up there competing with these guys. But anyway, so you hit your first rounders that hit, you're probably in a good shape. But that's it, man. That was just a little bit of a weird deep dive into
no, I
some
liked it.
rookie performances.
It's
Yeah.
interesting. Don't overhype draft capital. That's what I'm learning.
Yeah, I think just go with your gut, man. I mean, my claim to fame has always been that Terry McLaurin pick of mine back in that rookie draft 2019.
Hmm.
And man, just makes you like you just got to trust what you see on film, man. You got
True.
your big Elijah Mitchell guy. You just gotta, yeah, that
Yeah.
one didn't have the staying power.
It was cool year one, but
Absolutely it was. So that was a lot of
Garrett
fun.
Wilson was my guy, although he was a top 10 pick. So it's not like he
Yeah,
just draft landing spot hurt him a lot. I mean, a lot of people took Traylon Burks in front of him, which if you watched those two people play in high school or in college, I don't know how you do that, in my
yeah.
opinion. But that was a landing spot one. But man,
Your
yeah,
guy
no,
gets
that
the
was super
Buckeye
interesting.
bump, man. Give him the
Buckeye
Buckeye
bump.
bump. Um, okay, well, so I've still got my matchup
Word.
conversation. So I'm just gonna go through each game and it's and kind of give you what I'm looking at as far as things that are popping out to me. Should be pretty quick, but I'm starting off with Carolina and Chicago. And as we know, Carolina's been really letting the multiple TDs happen to them. They have 6 games like that. 4 of them were pure rush games. So maybe Chicago will get a little bit of action. They've had some multi TD games, mostly from DJ Moore had one, and then Cole Kmet. So it's all over the field there, but I think they have an opportunity to really get into it. Carolina been putting up double-digit targets. Chicago's allowing that quite a bit. The same can be said about the Indianapolis New England game. Indianapolis has been hyper targeting a few of their wideouts, and the Patriots defense is allowing that to happen. There's not much on the multi TD front. I mean, Indianapolis is right up there with Carolina, allowing 6 such games, 5 pure rushing. So it could be a good Ramondre Stevenson looking game. Get him back in action after that big touchdown run last week. Um, Rolling into the Cincinnati game, really liking that Houston is allowing double digit target games pretty readily. And Cincinnati is all about that life. So just looking for some high flying action. That should just be up in the air, man, unless Cincinnati's defense can lock it down, man. They had a good game against the Bills last week, but we'll see how it goes. Moving on to the Minnesota game, they're up against New Orleans. The Saints have been doing multiple TDs on the ground, between Taysom and Alvin Kamara, and Minnesota is really allowing that to happen. Both these teams are hyper targeting players too, so it should be pretty high flying as far as that goes. I like the Green Bay game that you're going to be in attendance with, dude,
Woo!
versus the Steelers. So as far as receiving multi-touchdown games, Pittsburgh has allowed 3 of them, and Green Bay has done 2 of them. And 2 doesn't sound like much, but that's above the league average quite a bit. So maybe we'll see some good touchdowns through the air. Maybe they'll be funneled to one player, but really what I want to see is Tennessee capitalize. They're up against Tampa Bay, who's allowed 9 games of double-digit targets to single players, which is amongst the top 3 in the league. So hopefully Will Levis just keeps it rolling with Hopkins. Maybe we'll get him hyper targeted and get him a big game as well. Should be a similar type thing with San Francisco. They're allowing a lot of double-digit targeted guys, and Jacksonville's coming in there, and they're pretty hot on that action as well. They have 3 games with multi TD rush attempts, but San Francisco has allowed 0 of those, so I don't know if Travis Etienne will have an opportunity to get back into that kind of action. So yeah, I don't know. Let's see. There's not a lot going on with the Baltimore Cleveland game. That should be actually a sweet game though.
Should be good. Yeah.
Arizona and Atlanta though. Holy smokes, dude. Atlanta is allowing hyper targeted players all over the place. 7 games of that. Arizona has done it 7 games. And even though they have a quarterback change, I look for them to kind of keep pushing it in that direction. Similar thing with the Chargers. They're definitely allowing hyper targeted players, and they're up against Detroit. So looking for Detroit to really get nasty. Either Amon Ra or Sam Laporta, one of those guys, is just going to keep rolling with it. Same thing can be said with Dallas going up against the Giants. The Giants are allowing it. Dallas is getting into hyper targeting CeeDee Lamb a little bit, so probably look for that to keep going. Seattle's got double-digit target games all over the place. They're up against Washington, who's allowed quite a few of those. But the real thing I'm seeing is Washington is allowing multiple touchdown games through the air against them.
Mm.
And Seattle is ready to get after it with that, especially now that Washington has lost 2 pretty predominant pass rushers.
Mm-hmm.
So it should be a good game for the Seahawks. A little bounce back after getting waxed last week. I don't know what to say about the Raiders and the Jets, so I'm just going to roll on to Buffalo and Denver. Denver has allowed 5 multi TD games against them. And let's see, I would say 6. Yeah, 3 on the ground and then 3 pure on the air. And Buffalo has had 7 multi TD games produced by individual players. So probably just looking for Buffalo to roll, kind of bounce back after that Cincinnati game as well. So I don't know. That's every game. That's my that's my highlights of opportunities going into it.
Nice. Yeah.
Yeah.
It'll be fun. There's some good games this week, but yeah, that Baltimore Cleveland one might be kind of tight and defensive. So I don't know. We can expect a lot of fantasy out of that, but all right.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I mean, Baltimore is definitely leading the league with like multiple TDs on the ground by individual players. So maybe if Lamar can get in the red zone, look for that. But
That'd be fun.
That'd be about it, man. Cleveland's been pretty ironclad. So
yeah, they've been really, really good. Well, all right. Like Dan said, I will be heading to Pittsburgh by the end of this week. So we're gonna kind of wrap it up here so I can get on to the editing work and stuff like that. But until next time, we've been Rough Draft Research. You've been the audience, and we'll see you next time.
Deuces.
I took a lease out on your heart.